The law is a mess. It needs to go. It's way past time to start over. I want to read just one little part of, I found the magazine, it was in the bathroom. Majority rules. I'm going to talk about time in this video. This article is about the government shutdown. With constituents so divided and incentives so misaligned, the country has been set up quite literally to fail. And the president, who was elected by the entire country, seemed content to be a bystander to the game. At the White House, Obama's aides studied the polls and saw in Boehner's brinkmanship an exercise in self-harm. I know it's Boehner, but I can read right there. B-O-E-H-N-E-R. That don't say Boehner. That says Boehner. It's like that skit, reminds me of Cat Williams, when he said, look, it's Knob, look right there, K-N-O-B, Knob, you know, it's kind of like, what's that K doing there, and why do we put it there, you know, and I love when people are all on me about grammar and stuff. I'm like, that's just, you know, there are a lot of languages, there are a lot of different ways that certain people spell thing, you know, speak to each other, and there are slangs and spell things and shorten things, and now with texting, everything's shortened. We all get the point. Like, I'm never confused when someone misspells something, or because certain people purposely spell it how it sounds because it's what makes sense, and we're like the common sense types. You know, I may not be scholarly and so well versed in everything that's taught in all the institutions out there, but I try to, you know, come from a common sense perspective, what makes sense, you know, and so it's just, it's a mockery sometimes, like just the opposite. I'll use certain words that, like there or here, like just the opposite, because I know it annoys people, because they email me about it. I'm like, did you get the point? Because that's the point, is to get the point of what's being said. I realize grammar is so important in a lot of different arenas, and I will, you know, do my best to appease when I need to, but otherwise, like, it doesn't matter. You're just getting to the point, you know. So anyway, sorry to jump off game, but I know his name's Boehner, not Boner. I just want you to know that I do know that. I'm not a retard. Okay, so the I don't want to, sorry when I say retard. I know that everybody is so sensitive, so now it doesn't matter what you say, like, it seems like somebody's offended by what you say. And I'm never offended. It's really hard to offend me. You can't really do it. I don't know the last time I've really been offended. Offends. You know what does offend me? When people think I'm stupid and treat me like I am. I guess that offends me. Because I must be blind. Moving on. So the GOP quest to reverse Obamacare was front and center in 2012 and failed. If the opposition wanted to die again in the same trench, Obama was content to let it. This is what I'm talking about. That's all I want to read on that whole article. Because we can't be blind to the possibility that, okay, here's an example. Take a married couple. If you have two people who come from two different places all the time and can't ever agree, it's black, it's white, it's night, it's day, it's this way, it's that way, and constantly war, everything will stay the same, because there's no way you can have any progress if both sides are continuing to be like that. So in a bill that was set up to help people who need health insurance, and there could be something under that bill that would allow it to, basically it's like self-sabotaging. It's sabotaging itself to even have something in it that could allow the government to shut down and cause all this harm to businesses and restaurants, you know, all these people that are just innocent bystanders that are just, you know, carrying the brunt. You know, usually, you know, all these people 800,000 people who have been laid off or furloughed or whatever, it's, you know, that feeling that furlough, those people in this time of not getting a check and not know, you know, it's scary, but there are all kinds of people who are willing to help them all the time because, they feel bad for being furloughed. The same cause, they have caused the same thing to the people who aren't counted in the unemployment rates at all and then in the census at all. And I've spent time going around to different neighborhoods and different zip codes and like looking out how many zip codes are there. Okay, and what is the income level in the pools here, in these different areas, and then go around, look around in the neighborhoods, and like we don't have roundabouts and fountains, and like there are so many houses broken down on every block, glass all in the street, and why, why do potholes for days? Like I can't even explain it, and I will figure out how to get out there and get the footage because I'm scared to take my computer out there because my car is already gone. But the point I'm trying to make is that if you're always warring, it's going to be the same and it's not going to help anyone. And if you're for the people and representing all people, then all people should have the opportunity to be heard. So how do we get you to pay attention? What other option do I have than risk my own reputation and my future and my ability to ever be employed and survive in your world and your system ever again because I raised my hand and said, I don't like this. And I know I'm supposed to just take it and do whatever I'm told to do. And that's just how it is. But I'm sorry that I'm not able to do that because it's not like I'm speaking against God. I'm speaking against you. You aren't God. You are a system that you make everyone live with under or other countries deal with. And America has a lot of money and a lot of power and a lot of potential for, with weapons of mass destruction. And I have nothing to do with any of that. Nothing. And I don't care to. And just because I didn't want to spend my time going to school for political science or whatever, or spending all my time trying to make myself into the kind of robot that you are in order to, have some input in the world, doesn't mean I should get to say absolutely nothing at all. I'm still in this world too. And last I checked, all men were created equal. And I know that you say, oh, well, you were created equal, but you don't end up equal. But if we're created equal and start out equal, and the only difference that makes you, successful or have, accessibility to the options that you do, that so many other people don't, like nothing, what separates you is that you went through the best schools, you had time, because I'm going to talk about time in a second and how that makes all the difference in the world. And you were able to get all the way through maybe getting your doctorate or having seed money available to you to start businesses up much easier than anyone else who ever came from any of these certain zip codes. And why is it that all certain neighborhoods all are poor? And this neighborhood is all middle class and this neighborhood's all rich, and like we can't ever get to the rich people who have the money who I would like to ask to become an investor because I come from the country and I don't have a Rolodex, because I've asked a lot of questions, and one of them is, what is your greatest asset? I asked to people with a lot of them, and they always say their Rolodex, their list of contacts, because they can, and that's where I'm going to point out that, there's a false illusion of separation between church and state, and that it's really easy because these small worlds I've served, they really, like the pharmaceutical world, you'll see, one person that I used to, see at one pharmaceutical company when I was going to, try to get a contract with them, because it's a long term, the turnaround time is a lot longer in testing services for pharmaceutical drugs because there's 10 phases. So you're supporting them all throughout. So you have to negotiate those terms and bring different departments in, and do a lot of different back and forth. So there's enough time to see, someone be in one pharmaceutical company and then be at the FDA or be at the, I'm just trying to point out that the fact that these people go to school for it really comprise a pretty small world. And they're all, within each other, you know, and I mean, that made no sense, but they, you know, we all intermingle at trade shows and events and things like that. So everyone knows each other. And you know, so if for someone like me, I've had 29 jobs, so I've jumped around to see all these different worlds, and I'm like, yeah, it's relatively small, and they're interconnected in different ways because they know each other across the board, because everybody's like, oh, I got my internet guy, or I got that guy, or I have this guy. When you are wealthy, that's how it is. You guys, so there are these small teams at the top, you know, and they all together are the 1%. And I'm just saying, if that 1% isn't interested in what the bottom, you know, 1% has to say, or even that we exist, then, you know, what's going to happen is those people, you know, basically we die. And that there should never be anyone who can control the life of someone else, because they're not God either. They're just other human beings. No other human being should be able to decide a life path for any man, let alone masses of people, because they first got to the flag. Like in the game of Capture the Flag, they stole it, and then actually they stole the flag and then kept the flag. And you know, police and serve and protect used to be actually for people. And we see how often, you know, wealthy or prominent officials get off the hook with things or get busted for them whenever it's convenient, you know, for someone who is probably blackmailing them for a while. So time, getting back to, I always have to kind of remind myself and circle back to what I started out thinking about, because it all starts with our time, right? Because we're born and we don't make money. You know, our parents pretty much decide everything for us until, you know, however old you are when you leave home. For me, it was 18. And then, you know, time went into school and college, and I had to work a serving job at the Cheesecake Factory, and then I had an internship. We had to do 2 different ones, and then I also had a extracurricular activity, and I was for a second. But I couldn't give myself fully to any one of those things. I couldn't really excel in any of them because I had spread myself out too far. And I know that, you know, I probably shouldn't have done the cheerleading thing for, you know, the sacrifice of my grades and, or, you know, my education or working, because I had to work. And then the internships, you don't get paid, you pay to do them. So that's why I also had to work, because I still had to pay for my living expenses, and because I was able to get loans for school, but I had to pay still for my apartment and everything else. So I wasn't getting paid for the internship, and taking that opportunity to cheerlead, like I never got to dance a full game, and you spend all that time practicing and putting, you know, sacrificing everything else in order to have a once in a lifetime opportunity to do something you really want to do, and you can't really do it fully because and I was partying a lot too, admittedly. Like, I'm not going to pretend that I wasn't also trying to figure out what the world was about, because I'm 20 something. I wanted to be young and free, because I had been, you know, I didn't have parentals. I grew up in the corn and beans. Like, I was pretty sheltered, so I was very curious about other things. So all those things worked against me. So time, you know, is interesting, because you always, why is it always you have the least amount of time left over for yourself? You know, like everything else sucks up your demands, and then you have just like a shaving left over to put into your own business ideas, or, you know, taking a dance class, or you know, learning a language, or, you know, taking up a sport or a hobby. These things that achieve a balance in someone's life. It's all about balance. So why is it so misbalanced in our sleep? You know, people, I mean, I get my sleep, but other people like sleep like 4 hours of sleep sometimes, and that's a regular thing for them, because in order to have some me time, they have to take less sleep time, because we don't have a chance to shave time in any other area. And with all the other technological, you know, advancements that are making things easier, like we have self-checkouts now. You see all the time on different, you know, 2020 or news things about robots being made, or I mean, if we can create easier ways to do things that require a lot of people to do right now, and it makes everything cheaper when they, you know, more efficient, and companies are able to lay off a bunch of people because they found a better way to do it instead of outsourcing it to other people in other countries. It's due to technological advancements. I'm talking about that alone. If it's making everything easier, why does it automatically benefit the company? If we're all supposed to be a part of the same team and we're all using our hands and feet to make this company a lot of money, and one person, even though because it was just their idea, is making exponentially more money than everybody else in their company, and the lowest paid employee is still just as important as every other role in the company, yet the gap between that employee and the CEO or the owner or the board of directors or stockholders, whatever it is. I mean, what accounts for that amount of gap when those people actually have to report at a certain time every single day to their job. And if they're late, they're going to, potentially lose their job or be reprimanded for it. They have to adhere to a certain dress code policy, a certain code of conduct, a certain language, and they have to, spend potentially 20 years of their life there before they're told, we don't, or sooner told, we don't need you anymore. And they can do that at any time, let you go at any time. There's no, nothing you can really do about it. Yet your hands and feet still, everything you produced is making that company millions of dollars. That company has grown from a tiny size to a huge size, not because of the person sitting at the top shuffling papers, making decisions, and showing up to work whenever they want and having these meetings. And yeah, I understand those things are required, but really at such a misbalance of the people producing, the people providing the services, the people that are if you watch the movie, either film In Time with Justin Timberlake or Olivia Wilde, or Upside Down is the other one. Upside Down is the other film. These two things will give you a fiction. It's a non-fiction, but it's a fiction movie. But a lot of times I can find more non-fiction in fiction than I can non-fiction books find non-fiction, because facts are subjective. You always have to keep that in mind. That's why I have dug to the bottom, because they're obviously, if there's a lot of facts on one topic and none of them agree, then you have to figure out which one is actually the fact, and they all claim to be. So, crap, I keep getting off track. Those two films, In Time and Upside Down, portray the gap much better between that I'm trying to talk about between the lowest paid employee and the highest paid employee. And the worst part is we don't have any access to those people, because whenever I see them, unless I'm serving them or unless they, I'm able to be around that environment through someone else or whatever, however I find myself around them, for the most people, like, they can't ever access them. They go up, and give speech if, you see them give a speech, or you see them, because it's always one-way input, and they live behind gated communities. They have security a lot of times. They have drivers and doormen and guards for days, right? You never can access these people. So if they're behind all these layers of people, and then we're all down here, and they make the middle class not like the lower class, because the middle class is sick of, their tax money, because, big businesses, there are certain businesses that don't pay taxes at all. So they gross, huge companies, like a lot of energy companies, or like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, there are certain companies who, help fund these campaigns. That's what I'm talking about, it being dangerous from the get-go for money to be what gets campaigns started for us to elect anyone to begin with. If it's built on money and people don't want to give away their money, then they're not likely going to back a cheerleader for the people so much, and even if they do, it's to blindly use that cheerleader to get them elected and then manipulate them once they are elected. That's why we see people, really be convincing on the front end and then get elected and do something completely different, because only on the other side of that door do they realize that's why the game's set up. I mean, there's so many different ways to block each other that you really can't make any decisions go forward. That's the point I'm trying to get to. That is the point from the quote that I started out with about Obama just seems to be content to let it go. Well, yeah, you allowed the thing in the bill to begin with, so it kind of seems like you knew that was going to happen. You raise everybody's hopes up and get us, excited that we can, have at least healthcare. You don't understand. You don't hear the stories. You don't talk to the people. Mine are just my ears, like simple things I can't do, and I'm still young and healthy enough. It doesn't affect me as much. But if there aren't enough positions available in this system, and we know that even when people claim to be listing all these jobs, and I see all these people unable to get them, it doesn't make it okay, to keep doing this, and make the middle class carry the brunt, because they are paying the taxes and they make so much less money. So it's like that little bit of tax money, if you just made all the rich people actually pay their taxes, the poor people, or middle class people wouldn't be warring with one another. We wouldn't have to be fighting for, them to hear us and understand, because we're the only one with access to each other. We talk to each other down here on the upside down world. So if we're fighting with one another because we can't be heard by you and we can't talk to you, believe me, I would love to come and tap on your shoulder if I could, if some security person wouldn't, tackle me, or if I called somebody and they treated me like a human being, or wrote a letter and felt like it wasn't, I ever heard something that wasn't a form letter back, and I saw something that was working, I wouldn't feel like I have to be like, hi, I know, excuse me, hi. I just want to, I know I'm interrupting your party that you got going over there. I know everything I look at, it's like one big party. They're always going to, dressed up so nicely, going to some benefit or lunch or whatever. And I'm like, how hard are they really working? Because I lived in California. I lived in these different parts. I'm like, who's at work? It's just traffic forever all the time. And who's working? If you're working so fucking hard, just like us, just like I see the people in my neighborhoods juggling multiple jobs, unable to put food on their tables, can't go to the doctor. I run on streets every day that have fucking broken glass everywhere, run past houses with spray paint. These people are acting out. They're desperate. Do you understand what happens to a person? That's why I'm saying all this stuff on the forefront. So when I finally start posting some of the stuff in the documentary, because it doesn't make me look flattering at all. It'll make me want to go crawl in a hole and be ashamed of myself. But I'm willing to put it out there for the sake of change, for the sake of getting real, for the sake of knowing that we're all sinful. We all have good, bad, and ugly. If only some people are punishable to them, and other people are above that because they created what punishes. That's what's wrong. The whole Bible is talking about the law, and then you turn around and say it's separation of church and state, right? But then you won't let people who are homosexual get married to one another. So which is it? Which is it? Because it's either all that way or nothing that way. So it can't be when we want to use the sword back to fight back at you that we can't use it anymore. And I would invite you to watch either Galatians or the series I did on Romans to know the translation that I hear, which is not just my own, but I know that many people see it the same way I do. They just can't say anything. So what is it that makes you worth so much more than everyone else? And that it's okay that we all suffer and have to fight and battle each other or do things like this, embarrass myself and put myself out here because it's the last option. Get back to a corner where you literally have no options left. I mean, there's nothing that can justify it. I don't care how wrong a person has done, because they did that wrong, because people snap. When they're desperate, when people are hungry, when I allow myself to get super hungry, I turn in. And that's why I'm going to go ahead and let you see, because I'm going to let you see what happened to me when I got backed in a corner, when I was super hungry, or when things were upsetting me, and how I felt, because it's ugly. It's bad. And that's not the old me. So what happened? Nice, sweet girl goes out in the world with all the best intentions to build things that aren't just to benefit herself, to try to be a good citizen as much as possible. I mean, I don't go over and above like, maybe other people do, but I spend my time into things that I feel like are super over and above. It's just, if this, what I'm building takes a long term, somebody has to take their time to do it. And it's me. And I'm so fucking tired of people doubting who the fuck is it's me. I am doing this for the very people who are doubting me. And it makes me feel like Jesus in that sense, because the very people he was trying to save doubted him. And it's like, why is it good intentioned people are doubted, and people who are the shittiest of people and have every self-motivation? The system's so fucking bully system I've ever seen, to demand us to do this and this way, and to fucking, or else, or you fucking die. That is it. It's the Hunger Games. It's some audacity. It really is. I mean, pretending to be God, because if you are a baby into the system, you grow up thinking that is God. And then when you read the Bible, you correlate the institutions that God and those people were talking about as being God in the institutions today, when this system was built after that book. When did it stop being about getting together and just enjoying life? From the beginning of time in the Garden of Eden, it was about togetherness and hanging out and not worrying about sin, the difference of good and evil. We weren't supposed to know. It's like taking the blue pill and being able to see, oh shit, we're naked. So then we cover up and cover everything up, and that's why I'm fucking always covered up and shit now. I get why why they only show, the ladies only want to show their eyes, because it's whatever. I get so caught up with all these different thoughts at the same time, because you get to a certain point where you see it's all ridiculousness, and I can no longer serve it. That's what I meant by my resignation. The interview I was supposed to have at 9 a.m. yesterday, I didn't go. I rescheduled it for 1:30 today. I didn't go. I'm in trouble. I know this. I realize no one's left on my side. No one agrees with me, and everyone thinks I should just go work. But I can't tell you that I can't stand up for something and support something and serve something that I couldn't disagree with more. When my friend read me an article and part of a quote, and I won't say who it was because I frankly can't remember which one it was. But some senator is known to make a quote on CBS or some news, saying that he does not believe the government has any place in healthcare at all. Yet his 8 kids are on Medicaid, and he justified himself by saying, I can't remember exactly, but he said, I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember, but he said, if taking advantage of a program is indicative of supporting it, then yes, I am a hypocrite. What the fuck demonstrates a hypocrite other than supporting it? These are the people who we have elected. The quotes that when I hear some of them are good. Like one dude, I used his quote because he said, "We are acting like a bunch of kindergartens in control of weapons of mass destruction and lots of money." In some sense, and it's like that right there makes sense. Yes, that's what you're acting like, a bunch of kindergartners. But if you got them, a house divided is going to fall, and you got them warring, and no one's accountable. I didn't do it. No one's to blame. We can't blame anything. Then it stays the same, which is what they want. So, I don't want to be a hypocrite and go serve something that I definitely do not support or agree with, or see many things left that were how they once were, how our forefathers intended them, do you really think everyone has an equal right to the pursuit of happiness? For fuck's sake. Really? Do you really think that this is what was meant by the system when it was started? Do you think this is what the institutions and what God meant in the Bible? I get in the Old Testament, he said, if you do not work, you don't eat. That was back when working wasn't set up with a fucking list of shit that goes on, attachments that go along with it that make a person miserable and enslave them to that position forever. Because if certain neighborhoods get better tools for schools and their families are supporting them while they're in school without having to have a job, which is how most people at the school I went to got to roll, and then they get to go on to, how many people do you think that can go on to a doctorate level, really, that come from rural areas or less fortunate areas or projects? Because it's really hard when you start out there and you don't have parents who maybe give too much of a fuck about you, and then maybe you wake up one day and you're in jail because you were a kid and were on the streets susceptible to way too many demons early, and really were taught no other way. You were exposed to no other way, and you didn't have anyone that gave a shit about you. And then, okay, so then you wake up and you're like, all right, I'm going to get my GED. I'm going to make my life right because now I'm awake. Now I'm old enough to understand. And then they get out of prison. They still have, a felony on their record, or, and then people, that never went away. That never goes away. And so that's what I mean by, if you're always told you're something, how can you become anything else? Because that's what becomes reality. Perception becomes reality. And so those people who only get through high school if they're lucky are always going to be at high school level kid jobs. They're never going to make very much money. So if they do an honest work for 20 years, and they never have enough money left over to have nice things or go on vacation or, explore the world or take classes and become smarter, because they have to spend all their time just surviving for half as good as shit from Goodwill or, hand-me-downs or whatever. And why? Why are they always punished when they paid for their mistakes? And we witness people never pay for their mistakes, make mistakes all the time, and never ever pay for them because they're above it. You who write is above, right? I would look at my notes because I freestyle, but I always have certain things I want to make sure I talk about. I want to just stick to time in this one, though. Okay. So, if we're maxed out on our time due to demands, because not only do you work 5 days a week, and now people have to compete with each other and stay later and later because people know that they have us by the balls. There are only so many positions available right now. And if you have to put food on your table and maintain, paying the bills for the things that you don't own yet, that you're still paying on, that you're pretty much, trapped to, then you don't want to lose your job, and you do pretty much anything. So, you stay later and later, you don't take lunches, you suck up to the boss, you make friends with certain people. There's a whole office politic that is built around it because of that. So no longer right there is it about your job, really. If so, we would all be able to work from home, and just however long it took us to get whatever job tasks that were assigned to us done is however long it took us, and then we could use that time, leftover time, to do with whatever we wanted to pursue our own ideas, or to make ourselves smarter, to build ourselves up to be our highest self, so we can, have some freedom, or put our good ideas into the world. We think this world is so advanced and so awesome. Imagine if everyone was operating in their fullest potential and had the avenues and abilities and the resources to get there. How fucking cool our world could be. Like, I bet it would be 20 times as cool as it is right now. But it's because people who, gain control don't want to lose that control, but yet they don't really do continuing education to contribute anything back. They just sit back and coast and have parties and, basically swap money around, because even when they donate to another person's charity, they're just giving it to one of their friends' hands right there, and then they get to deduct that as on their taxable income. So if they're just fucking handing each other money and off their taxable income, and they have so much more money than us, then guess what all the government programs and institutions are run on? The poor people's tax money. The same people who are doing all the production and all the service and really the brunt work of what makes them so successful. And then they turn around and they make fun of us. Our clothes, how we talk, if we're stupid, that they can fool us so easily. And yet we're the product of the system they built up to begin with. And if all of you think I am crazy, I am so glad, because I know that I see it right. And if I'm the only one who can, I'll go down. And if something happens to me, and people will post, oh, go see someone in counseling, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go see a counselor. And have them do the same thing all of them other do. Nothing to say? Or tell me, oh, it's your weed problem. Can't figure it out, can ya? Can't figure it out. So, must be something wrong with me. Just replace some labels. Several words have different meanings. Like this right here is called loud. So I'm going to demonstrate the difference. I was smoking what's called brick weed before, which isn't very potent. This stuff is much more potent. So before I go on to the next part of what I want to ramble about today and address today, I'm going to roll this up so I can demonstrate how ridiculous this is too. And before I start posting the stuff that's going to embarrass the shit out of me, because when I had my iPhone, there were certain times when crap was going down and the wheels were coming off of my life where I thought to turn on my camera on my phone or my recorder. Sometimes it was just like the voice memo one, and other times I actually use like the video, but I wouldn't get like the signs or the faces wherever I was, because I really did go into each of these institutions, like prisons, schools. I spent 30 days in jail, and I also have visited prisons. And then schools, I helped to, at a charter school, I helped to recruit kids for a first-time charter school in the city. I mean, it had been in Fort Wayne, but it was the first time bringing it to Indianapolis. So I was part of the marketing team to help, and give tours to the families and educate them on the charter school. I don't know if I should associate them with what I'm doing, because it is a Christian charter school, and I don't know if that's a good idea. So I hesitate to say the school that it was. But so from that direction, and also just studying about it, and then homeless shelters and just talking to homeless people, I have a lot of footage of that. the medical field going into the stress care center, and I wasn't able to have my phone in there. But someone came in with their phone and to visit me, and so I do have one video that I was able to get while I was in there. But I went to the stress care center, the mental care side, and then the government programs, the different ones I've tried to take advantage, like getting loans or grant money or getting wage earning statements, and how long you have to wait on the phone and how much time that they eat up just in lines and then making you punch buttons and saying your information 4 times before you get to the last person. It'll be like, okay, you call and it's like, enter your account number, and you do all that, and then the first person that answers asks you for all that information again. It's like, what was the point of just entering it then? And then you tell that person, and they're like, oh, you need this department. So they'll transfer you to that department, and then that department asks you that information again. Sometimes they really do. And then sometimes you learn, like, after you tell your whole story about why you were calling the first day, they'll be like, oh, you actually need to talk to these people. And so before I know it, I've spent an hour doing something and people need to work on their lunch hours. They need to grab just a couple minutes here and there. And, they lay off people, and they make us, everywhere you go, there's lines everywhere. Every restaurant, every, store, everywhere we're waiting in lines, and that eats up more and more of our time. And for me, who doesn't have a vehicle anymore, and it takes me twice as long to get anywhere if I have to walk there or take a bus, and that's part of the reason I didn't go to the interview today, because I was like, I am so sick. Like, for me, when I wake up in the morning, it's the worst version of myself, because I have to talk myself into going through the charade all day, because I see all these things, because I know it's not right, and it hasn't been right for so long, and it's so hard to continue serving something because of it, and it like makes me want to try and start like a national strike, not to stop working, but to negotiate our benefits back. If we don't, stop and say, until you give us, like what McDonald's tried to do, and they're like, oh, well, you don't work very hard, you don't move at a very fast pace to get your, like, why do you think you deserve $15 an hour? And it's like, the point is, who's going to work real expeditiously for you if you're not giving them enough money to take care of their bills? And they go home after working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, to a crappy place and crappy shit, and someone else in their space who's also pissed off because they don't make any money wherever they are, and because everybody that doesn't have money is with each other. People who are rich don't marry people who aren't, so they all keep the money in the family. So us poor people struggle together, and that makes us mad at each other, because neither of us are to blame. Like, both of us are in this shitty position. We're just in it together. But what do? We yell at each other. And kids are in those environments, brought up in those environments to be angry. All because they don't have a fair living condition. The cost of living is so much more expensive now, and the rate of minimum wage has gone up. And so maybe people will work a little faster if they're happy and if they can take care of themselves. Or if you balance it with incentive, like my best jobs were a balance of base and commission structure to make them go faster, but they don't want to pay them out more than that, and they don't really care if we're not getting our shit when we need it. That's my point about them just letting us kill each other and be mad at each other. You don't care about either the business owners or the lower class. The major business owners, the people who own all the businesses. Most of the majorly rich people that I have served or met or talked to own all kinds of shit. Their portfolio, they call it. They own the world. It's like the game of Monopoly, except they own the whole fucking thing, and this is supposed to be an oligopoly. So whatever little time we do have, they eat up in phone calls, commercials. They force us to watch. If you don't have TiVo, and poor people don't, you don't even have cable, And taking the bus, it takes all the people who don't have cars. Like, everybody around here walks. Like, it's common. People are walking everywhere all the time through the winter, everything, taking buses. That takes twice as long to get to and from work, just doing that. So where's the time for them to go to the library and get books and try to educate themselves so they can have a job like yours? When they would like to have like, I don't have a family, so I'm able to still do it. They aren't, because they have a family. They have zero leftover time and no money. So that's the dirty trick. The fact that they go spend all their time working and still have no time or money left over other than just taking care of their overhead. It's literally a prison sentence. Life is a prison sentence with work release, and they did nothing wrong. Because if you go all your life, because I've been pretty much at the bottom of every rung, because I've changed rungs 29 times, so you just stay at the bottom, and I don't care to climb. I've learned whatever I wanted to learn out of it. I left. But it gave me the opportunity to see many people only get through high school, or they get stamped with a felony, or, they just didn't have the aspiration to go to college, or didn't want like, everybody has to do every role, and every role is just as important in this to make this world go around. So the people who just don't aspire for the kind of jobs that have high price tags just want a normal, simple life, and they're happy with that. But now they're not happy with that because they can't, pay for their health insurance. They have to go to work just for that. And if they get laid off, they get COBRA for a while. And then to renew COBRA is fucking crazy expensive. And that's why you see old people at Walmart being the greeters, and older people or qualified people having kid jobs now, because they're more efficient now. They have technology, they have outsourcing to other countries and exploiting those people instead of us, because they're even willing to do it for far less, to keep more of the profits. And there is very little balance in profit sharing. So for those people who always work that way, and then a company says, we don't need you anymore, after they just chose the simple life, did an honest, hard day's work, showed up on time, not 8:02, 8 o'clock, and traffic, shit happens. People's lives happen every day. Just random stuff happens and changes their time, but they were able to make it there at 8 o'clock for 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, 5 years, and then one day you just say, we don't need you anymore. Maybe you get a severance for jobs like mine. I never have gotten a severance, so it's just kind of like, figure it out. And it was in those times I slipped and fell further and further, and more tools got taken away from me, which made it twice as hard to regain what I had already worked to obtain. That's depressing to me. I mean, just that person's hands and feet were used for 20 years to produce what made the company what it was. All those millions of dollars that make them so successful. And they're treated like a piece of trash. Like a machine that broke, no longer needed. This is why they don't want you to smoke weed, because it's truth serum. It makes you see things the way they really are. Why else would alcohol be legal over this? I'm just trying to create video montages of all the little things, all the things that I'm able to see. All the way, they got women squeezing their vaginas all day long for Kegel exercises for urine, to fix urine problems, or have tighter vaginas. Every South Beach diet book, diet, this, that, exercise, all of it, to these huge messages of of how to make us appear, pretty or pleasing, and be perfect, when it's so far from what's natural. And that's why whenever I feel comfortable enough after I've rambled enough, to feel like you'll know where I'm coming from before I show you the worst sides of myself, I'm doing this, shooting myself in the foot, because I want to stand up for something and really stand up for something. I'm not going to be like that senator and serve something I don't support. I'm not going to pretend show you only my good sides and not my bad. And because that's what happens. We all say, oh, we're all flawed, yet nobody wants anyone to air their dirty laundry, say all their thoughts. And I look out in the world and everyone appears perfect. So I'm like, where's all your imperfections? And you say you're so imperfect. Believe you're so imperfect. Well, show me, tell me then, because everybody's still, treating everything like a pink elephant in the room. We're still ignoring everything that matters and talking about Manolo Blahniks and shit that doesn't. I study 2 different kinds of magazines. These. And when I start, unrolling the evaluations videos of each of the institutions that I've been within and the comparisons of where our focuses are in terms of where they could be, mostly based on my experience of visiting Africa, because there was no ceiling of industry and that kind of economy yet. So there was more emphasis on enjoying life. And if so much has made life easier for us, then maybe instead of 8 hours a day, we should go to work for 4 hours a day. Why does the benefit always land on their side? Why can't that be spread out to, okay, now you don't have to come to work, as much, and you can have more time to put into really good things. It's not like you're spending that time. It's like people want to be able to have money and time to put into good things. No one wants to be bad. No one starts out as a kid like, going around, I want to be a fireman. I want to be a gangster. I want to be this, that, or the other. It's options that, a path leads them towards. And if it starts out designed that way, like this article started out saying, it's set up for failure, it's long past due of being able to even fix it. If people are able to freelance all of their skill sets and their times to build different teams. If I go have meetings and help build this kind of team and this kind of business with these kind of people for 2 hours, and then I go over here on another day and I spend 6 hours with this group of people using another complete list of set of my skills, then, and we're all determining how much we're worth and how much, because they'll say, oh, I can pay this much. And it's like, that's a project I want to be a part of. I'll accept that much. So it depends on how much it is, that you really need to charge each person. It varies. But, and the money hits you first. So even if you have to pay out taxes for these things that do serve us ultimately, it was meant to serve us. Just like in Romans chapter 13 in the Bible, the original authorities before the systematic one was built that we now serve, then we wouldn't mind paying those taxes, because it's not like you would be getting taxed every other way you turn around. Because you could even do exchange each other's. Like there are people I know that they could do things for me that I need too. And me for them. So, it's like you could exchange things. So that's like the idea behind my software, the software I'm trying to build. And at the risk of having any of my ideas talked about, because that's why I haven't previously been detailed about everything I've talked about, been doing over the years. I've only touched on them because I can't. I mean, in this world, people can take your ideas, and they are yours. They're, yours to build, and they're to be shared, but you have to be able to protect them. And without money, I can't do that. So it makes you have to be really careful, and people have to sign non-disclosure agreements. And even if you have a file cabinet of those, they don't necessarily stand up. So you have to take all these other poor man's avenues to try and protect yourself. And even then, we know that standing up to, huge entities or people with substantial affluence or money is really difficult to do for a poor person. So, unless they have a lot of proof. So you have to go through, you have to take time to do that anyways. So even at the risk of that, I just feel like getting this message out there, this is the time for me to do that. And I hope that the people who hear me are offended, and if you agree that I'm successful here, because I still haven't really revealed what what ultimately I'm going to do, which is I'd like to film a separate video once I'm situated and I have all these other videos done first, and with the examples I was able to capture when my own life was kind of, crumbling, to demonstrate how these two things, religion and politics, have directly caused these things going on. And then film that separate video addressing the members of Congress and, the top companies that don't pay very little or no taxes at all, who, hide behind super PACs to fund campaigns, and how these separations are really all interconnected in certain ways, and how the 29 jobs I've held and the examples of that will, provide some at least proof to what I'm saying. And that, most people, when they're accused of something or they go to jail for something, they are given a case and an opportunity to appeal and to present, and they have a lawyer, someone liar on their side, So I didn't, because I really have only had a DUI in my life and I haven't broken like the law, there's still a lot of effects that have happened on my life that feel like must have done something wrong to do that, to have this situation. I don't have any opportunity to present my case. So this is my way to do that, because these people won't listen to me. I've tried. So I'm going to do it publicly then, and, tag every word under the sun I can, to try and get it heard, because I feel like that's the position I'm in. I'd already lost everything pretty much anyway, and all my option left is to go start all the way back over again with no car and no phone and no home and no money. And like, when you've spent already so much time working toward things and buying into this formula and really making no mistakes other than, what the or the, collateral damage that comes with trying and failing at business or life or whatever, with different relationships or, that don't work out. So I don't feel like I've done anything to pay the penalty for, this kind of long-term suffering, and especially not when I see so many other people going through the same thing, when I just so happened to graduate at a certain time and the economy shifted, and, I didn't own a home, but the people going through the foreclosure thing and everything with the banks, it's like there are no bailouts for us. And then you watch, then you take, the same amount of years of example, like, so if it was 13 for me, I take the last 13 years of government stuff and I can line up all their faults, and I'm like, where is the accountability, and where did you pay any penalty for your mistakes when you had bailouts left and right, and we weren't afforded these same bailouts? So what is that about? And then when you couple that with Galatians and Romans, the series of short clips, I would invite them, if they would ever be willing to listen, which most people don't. They would rather live in denial or, than have to change anything because it's working for them, So I might fail, and that's a scary thing, because it doesn't mean well for me if I do. But I feel freer now than I ever have, and I feel like I at least said my piece, and I can face God and say, this is where I'm coming from, and you said to shout it from a mountaintop, and I did that as best as I knew how anyways. So yep, that's it.